Horizontal play.
Cats are available anywhere you want to look in the US. Now, where to get your kitten or your cat? This is always a hard question for people. I tend to tell people to go to a rescue organization in their local area because these are people that are extremely dedicated to finding the right cat, the right home. And when you deal with people who are in those organizations, you're always going to meet nice people who are always looking out for both your interest and the cat's interest.
Many cats that are there have lived in a home environment before, are very socialized with people, and really, really great companions. If you're short on time and you work long hours and you need an animal that's more independent and doesn't rely so much upon human contact, a great animal for you would be a cat. They're happy with 15 minutes of petting a day. You can clean their litter, and really, really, they can be independent, great members of your family and not require so much attention as a dog. It's really important that when choosing a cat, if you're looking for a cat that's really affectionate, we strongly recommend that you get an adult cat because their personalities in cats are fully formed when they're adult. When you get a kitten, they're still growing. They go through a phase called the teenager phase, and it's really hard to judge their personality, whether they're going to be playful, affectionate, aloof when they're at such a young age. It's really important that you get a cat that's an adult if you want to know really what their personality is going to be like. If you decide you want to adopt a kitten, it's a lot of fun. We strongly recommend when adopting a kitten that you actually adopt two. Whereas with other animals, we wouldn't recommend that. The kittens go through so many stages, one being terrible twos, where they really need that friend to get the extra energy out. And if you do like cats a lot, and you don't want to leave your kitty cat alone during the day, they can always have their friend. And cats are more likely to get along with other cats if they've grown up with another cat. So we strongly recommend in all of our adoptions, particularly in kittens, that you get another kitten to befriend him. A lot of people coming to the shelter wanting to adopt a dog and eventually realizing the time commitment it takes to adopt a dog actually end up adopting a cat. Cats are very sociable, very affectionate, and you can even walk them on a harness if trained. Also, a lot of children considering, or parents considering adopting a cat for their child need to keep a lot of really important things in mind. Kittens and young children don't mix because kittens like to play a lot, scratch a lot, and usually the child, when exposed to a kitten with all the scratching, will misinterpret that as aggression, and sometimes the children eventually end up becoming fearful of a cat. It's really important when considering kitten adoption that your kids be at least 7 years or older, and really explain to them to be very gentle with the cat and that the scratching of the cat is a normal thing and that's actually how they play. We strongly recommend that all children adopt cats that are a year and over, because cats that are a year and over will have their personality that's fully formed. You'll know if you have a cat that likes to be held, if you have a cat that's aloof, if you have a cat that likes to sleep with you at night. All those things are really, really important to keep in mind, especially when having a child. Learn your child's tendencies. If your child likes to pet the cat a lot, likes to hold a cat a lot, you should get a cat that likes to be held. And the only way you would know this is if you get a cat that's an adult and has a history. If you're interested in adopting a cat, you need to go to your local shelter and really spend time with the cats that you're looking at. Let all the cats out of the cage, sit in a sit-down setting. You can see which cat comes up to you first, which cat is attracted to toys, and you really have to feel that emotional connection with the cat. You have to see that cat in your life and see yourself being able to take care of this cat for the next 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years. When adopting a cat from a shelter, you'll need to bring a copy of your proof of home ownership, a copy of your lease, and in your lease it needs to state that you're allowed to have a cat, and pretty much your weight restrictions. Most condos and apartments are a lot more lenient with cats. So they're a really, really great animal, and they can also live in really, really small spaces. They don't need to be walked. We actually recommend that a cat lives indoors just because of all the viruses that you have outside and the fact that cats are natural wonders and so independent. They should live in an inside home environment. It's a really, really common misconception. As long as you have your window in your home, your cat will be perfectly happy living indoors for the rest of their life. A cat is a really, really great animal to adopt, really, really independent, super affectionate. They have great personalities, and you can also train them. If you spend enough time with them, you can even train them to walk on a harness if you do really, really want to take your cat outside. But cats are really, really great animals to adopt for everybody. Also, a lot of cats, if you get them from a young age, or if you do have history on them, they can be a great companion for your dog. If you really, really love animals and you don't have the necessary time it takes to walk 2 dogs at a time, you can get a kitty cat as a friend for your dog. A lot of people have been really, really successful. A lot of the animal lovers that are looking for a companion for their dog, the first choice is naturally, let me get another dog and let me get another dog. A great choice would be a cat for a lot of people.
Contrary to popular opinion, cats don't always dislike dogs. Some cats get along extremely well in households with dogs, and there's no reason not to have a cat and a dog together in the same house. But yes, introducing a new dog into a household can also be a tremendous stressor for a cat. It's one of those situations where, just like a new cat entering the household, but not as difficult for them to handle, is the introduction of a dog. Now, children are another issue for cats. Some cats adore children, and some cats just don't want to be messed with. They don't want to be picked up and hugged and loved and stretched and pulled and all those things that little kids do. But some cats, surprisingly, are really adaptable to this. And again, kids and dogs are no match for a friendly cat, and certainly not a problem for them at all. But when you start introducing another cat, that's when the issues tend to arise.
It's a common misconception that cats and dogs are natural enemies. If you're willing to work at it, you can make pretty much any animal get along with any other animal. You just need to invest the time in it. I recommend that if you have a dog and you're looking to adopt a cat, you should take your dog to the shelter. And if it's specifically going to be a friend for your dog, you should let your dog help you choose the cat. You can pretty much let your dog meet a series of cats, pick out all your favorites, and your dog should ultimately choose, because your dog is going to pretty much be the one home alone with a cat all day. It's really important that when you have a cat-dog relationship, that you give equal attention to both of them. Most likely, if you have a cat and a dog, and the dog was the first one in the home, if you're going to give treats, always give to the one that was first there, because animals do lead by dominance. But for the most part, you can have a really, really happy relationship between a cat and dog. You just need to work at it.
There are some issues you should know about when kitty cats are indoors in order to keep them safe. There is some houseproofing to be done when you're getting a cat or a kitten. The most important thing you should know is that cats really do like strings and do like tiny little foreign objects and will sometimes ingest things that they should not. The most common things that cats tend to eat that they shouldn't are linear foreign bodies. We call these linear foreign bodies in veterinary medicine, but they're actually anything that's like a yarn or a string or a dental floss. Dental floss is terrible. When cats ingest these, They usually do it because they start playing with them, and then they get caught in their teeth or under their tongue, and then they start to inevitably swallow whatever it was that they're trying to get rid of, because that's the easiest way for them to get rid of it. And unfortunately, it does tend to make a little accordion out of their bowels, and that's a problem. And usually it needs to be resolved surgically.
So you're ready to get a cat. How do you cat-proof your home? Cats are so agile, they're not little dogs. They can go on top of your armoire and your TV stand, they're everywhere. So what do? The first thing to do when you get your cat home is to set up a place for him. Set up a place where he can be confined if he needs to, a room of his own where he can climb on top of furniture and you won't mind. The second thing to do is to make sure that environment is enriched. Remember what cats like to do? They like to scratch, they like to climb on things, and they like to hide under things. So you can spend as much money or as little money as you want enriching your cat's environment. You can just use a paper grocery bag as a place for your cat to go and hide. You can set a bed on top of your TV, or you can buy a beautiful, huge cat tree and put a bed on top of that. Give your cat places where he or she can go that are appropriate, and they'll spend a lot less time climbing on your furniture. Another thing to think about is, do you have other cats in the household? Because if you do, we want to make sure we increase the watering stations and the feeding stations. If you have 2 cats, you should have at least 2 food bowls and at least 2 water bowls in different parts of the house. That way the cats can eat and drink in peace. They don't always have to be next to each other, and that will ease tension in your new family as well. You just brought home a new kitten. This is a very exciting time. Soon you'll learn that kittens have a lot of energy and can get themselves into a lot of mischief. The first thing you want to think about doing with that kitten is giving him a place where he can go, where you can confine him to keep him out of the rooms that have breakable items or the rooms that have expensive furniture. Make sure that he has a cat tree that he can climb so he spends less time climbing your furniture and your couch. And we want to give him appropriate places to scratch. So get those cat trees out and put them in places that you don't want scratched. Put them right in prominent places so the kitty can scratch with his claws there and get that out of his system. Remember that kittens start to develop a preference for a substrate to urinate and defecate in at about 5 or 6 weeks. So find out what the Humane Society is using or wherever you've adopted your cat from, and continue to use that litter if you can. If you have another cat in the household that's on a different kind of litter, offer at least 2 litter boxes in your household, one with the kitten's litter that he's used to, and then make sure that your cat has his options of the litter that he likes. Over time, as your kitten grows older, he may choose to use that same type of litter you've always used, but you don't want to switch them abruptly because you don't want to have a litter box problem.
A lot of people return cats that have previously been adopted from a shelter because of litter box issues, when in reality these cats are perfectly litter trained. The most important thing and the most common thing that people forget is that the cats are coming from a small environment. You have to confine the cat for at least the first 3 weeks that you have them so they can really learn and know where their litter box is. If their litter box is going to be in the bathroom, that means keeping them in the bathroom for the next 3 weeks. Although to some people it may sound cruel, it's really, really important for the happiness of the cat and your family that the cat really knows where their litter box is. After the first 3 weeks, once the cat is let out, they'll automatically know where their scent is and where to go to the litter box. Also, another reason why cats are actually surrendered to the shelter is because people can't take them with them. It's a very, very common misconception. Almost every apartment, every condo will allow you to have a cat, and they're also really, really easy to travel with because you can travel with them above the plane. You could just get a little carrier and put them underneath your seat. A lot of people think that they can just go and pick up a cat off the street. The benefits of getting a cat from a shelter are that the cat has been temperament tested. You won't be getting a wild or feral cat. The cat will be already vaccinated, spay or neutered, microchipped, and you'll have a complete medical history. And really, you'll be able to know the temperament of the cat. If the cat's affectionate, if the cat's aloof, we'll already have all that history. So it's not a guessing game as if you were getting a cat off the street. Having a cat is a big commitment. It's usually a 10, 15, sometimes even 20-year commitment. It's really, really important that you make the commitment of having a cat. The average year of your or the average cost of the first year of cat ownership is about $1,040. It's really, really important that you make that commitment to be financially and emotionally responsible for the cat that you have in your care. Cats can pretty much go with you everywhere. Cats can live in an apartment, a studio, really small space. A lot of people bring their cats to their office. They're very, very independent animals, and they adapt very, very quickly. It's just really important that you remember it is a lifetime commitment, and cats do suffer emotionally if they do change owners, or if they're taken to a shelter, or if they are displaced. It's really important that before adopting a cat that you make that judgment, and you really talk with the family, or really think if you're able to make that commitment. Sometimes a cat can live 20 years, especially a cat that's kept indoors. The average lifespan is 15 to 20 years. So it's really, really important that you make that commitment and take care of them to the best of your ability for the rest of their life.
The first thing you want to do when you adopt a kitten or a cat is to take them to the veterinarian. That veterinarian will go ahead and usually give vaccines. And the first vaccine that you should know about is the FVRCP vaccine, and that is the feline distemper virus vaccine and all those upper respiratory viruses that kitties get. And that will prevent those nasties from infecting your kitty. The other vaccine is the rabies vaccine. And this is one that usually cats will get at the first 4 months, and then again in a year, and then depending on your location, every 3 years. The cats and kittens will also get an FVRCP vaccine at 8, 12, and 16 weeks of age. Again, they usually get it the following year, and then every 1 to 3 years, depending on...
Pause. Play.
Another vaccine you need to know about is the feline leukemia vaccine. That vaccine in particular may or may not be administered by your veterinarian depending on your cat's level of risk. After you've adopted your cat or your kitten, the first thing to do is go see your veterinarian. Your veterinarian is going to do a variety of things on that first visit that generally don't need to be repeated, but depending on your kitty's circumstances might be. We do a complete physical examination. And this physical examination includes looking at the eyes, the ears, the coat condition, feeling the bladder, the abdominal organs, listening to the heart, all the same things that we would do for any animal. And that's extremely important. The other thing that we'll definitely do is run a test for feline leukemia and feline AIDS. These are two viruses that are incredibly prevalent in the population at large, in the feline population, that is. And they are viruses that cannot be transmitted to people, but it's very important to ensure that they do not have them, because they can put them at risk for other diseases and can put your other cats that you may have in your house at risk. And so the most important thing is we run this test. It's a blood test. So we just take a little sample, and we usually can tell you in the hospital whether they're positive or not. The other important thing is that cats do carry, just like dogs can, intestinal parasites, among other kinds of parasites. Intestinal parasites. This is something that every veterinarian will want to check your cat or kitten for. It's a very common occurrence that we see intestinal parasites. In almost all kittens that come off the streets, you're going to see parasites. Oftentimes, older cats won't have them because their immune system will have already taken care of them. But it's very important to have your cat or kitten tested. These parasites generally are not communicable to people, but sometimes, in some rare instances, there have been reported some transmissions. So you need to be very careful and make sure that we definitely take care of this. We'll generally get a stool sample, look at it under the microscope, and then determine what medications are needed to treat each individual parasite. It's important that every cat and kitten owner know that cats, just like dogs, need to have yearly annual visits, not necessarily vaccine visits, but at least physical exams. They also need to at least be vaccinated early in their lives, and they need to be taken care of very much like dogs. A lot of people consider cats to be self-sufficient, and they are not as independent and self-sufficient as you might imagine. They really do need a lot of veterinary care. Now, cats are specifically susceptible to certain kinds of diseases. We see a lot of periodontal disease, just as we see in dogs. We see heart disease in particular, And we also see a tremendous number of infectious diseases. Infectious diseases in cats are probably the primary problem that we see because so many cats are left outdoors. One of the most important things for ensuring your cat's health and safety is to keep your kitty cat inside. Cats are masters of hiding their illnesses. In many cases, you won't know your cat is sick until 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line. They're wild animals in a way. They like to hide their illnesses so that their prey doesn't get to them when they're sick. So what they do is they hide every single little bit of their symptoms until they can no longer cover them up. And then you want to make sure that you get them to their veterinarian as soon as you see signs of these illnesses. The most common sign is not eating. Anytime a cat that is a big eater routinely starts to skip a meal, you want to make sure that you get your cat to the vet right away. The other thing we want to make sure that people are aware of is their litter box habits. This is another reason why it's important to keep your cat inside, because urinary tract health is incredibly important in cats. And if your cat goes to the bathroom out of doors, then you're not going to know what problems might be persisting. So you want to make sure that you keep track of your cat's urinary tract health by taking a look in the litter box every once in a while and observing their habits. Make sure you put that litter box where you can see it. Fleas and ticks in your cat. Now, cats are not very commonly infected with ticks, but fleas and ear mites and sarcoptic mange in particular are kind of nasty ectoparasites, we call them, that will infest our cats. It's another good thing about keeping your cats indoors that they're far less exposed to fleas, ticks, and other nasties. There are a ton of products that you could use for these kitty cats. There are Revolution, Advantage, Advantage Multi. These are all products that are out on the market for your kitty cat, Frontline as well. And you can apply them on the back of the neck, and they're ultra safe to use to prevent most of these parasites. If you find fleas on your cat, sometimes it's just easy enough to just go ahead and apply the product right away. You can get these products at your local veterinarian. Sometimes, though, people just want to go with no chemicals and they just want to flea comb those little fleas out and call it a day. If that's your approach, great. Just when you use your flea comb, get the flea on the end of the tines of the comb and apply a stick of Scotch tape to it. And getting that Scotch tape, curling it up into a ball and throwing it in the toilet is your best bet. Periodontal disease in cats is one of the most common problems that they might have. Now, periodontal disease is where their gums become inflamed, as with gingivitis, and where they get a lot of tartar on their teeth. And this will actually cause cavities in some cats' mouths. About 15% of cats are especially susceptible to these kinds of cavities. And these cats will require very regular dental care, potentially once a year of anesthetic dentistry to control this condition. And the condition can be very painful. And people do not become aware of it until it's very, very far progressed. Another good reason to take your cat to the vet once a year. One other thing that I try to inform people of is that you can brush their cat's teeth. I recommend that a cat's teeth be brushed at least twice a week, if it's at all possible. Some people find that this interferes with their relationship with their cat, and if that's the case, well, then perhaps it's not worth investing in that kind of behavior. However, it's not that difficult, especially if you start teaching your cat at a very young age that a simple little brush in his mouth isn't going to hurt him. Give him a treat after. That'll make it better. There are tremendous benefits to keeping your cat indoors instead of out. The main benefit is that your cat is less susceptible to accidents and illnesses. Illnesses in particular, like all the viruses that are extremely prevalent in our cat populations, that's the most critical reason why you should always keep your cat indoors. And the other reasons are, of course, all the accidents and inter-cat problems that we see. Inter-cat problems meaning primarily cat fights, where cats will defend their territories and encroach on one another's territories in order to gain more. Cats are very, very territorial, as I've said, and this is one of those important areas where you should know that your cats can get bitten, and these bites can turn into abscesses, and biting is one of the main ways in which diseases are transmitted. The best way to bring an outdoor cat and make him an indoor cat is to just lovingly switch him into the indoor environment quickly. There's no other way to do it. And it's not so bad. Cats don't need to live outdoors. In fact, cats that live outdoors tend to live much less long, And they tend to be happier inside once they become accustomed. Some cats, once they're indoors, they never really want to go outside again. And other cats that are indoors sometimes will always be staring out the window longingly, but that doesn't mean that you need to let them out. There are some other reasons why you should keep your cat indoors other than accidents like cat bites and car accidents and things like this. The other main reason is that you should consider that the overpopulation problem of our cats is only going to be made worse by leaving our cats outside. The more cats that live in the outdoors, the more chances there are not only for disease spread, but for the increased prevalence of cats that can't really find homes in our society. One of the other things that people also fail to consider is the fact that cats that live outdoors are hunters, and they hunt our rodents and our birds, and our songbird populations have been shown to be decreasing significantly from the influx of all these cats into our suburbs. Whether your cat lives indoors or out, spaying and neutering is mandatory. No cat, male cat in particular, can really live indoors without being neutered. They are sprayers when they want to mark their territory, and spraying means that they emit urine and on vertical surfaces, and it can be very overpoweringly smelly when it's an unneutered male. Once they're neutered, males become more docile, and they are less at risk for contracting diseases out of doors. It does not make them more susceptible to being injured because cats will back down from other fights with male cats that aren't neutered. So it's one of those important things to note that spaying and neutering a cat, even an out-of-doors cat, especially an out-of-doors cat, is a mandatory part of having a cat. Female cats will go into heat at about 6 months of age. At this point, they are reproductively fertile, and a cat can actually have as many as 6 or 7, 8 babies at a litter, and they can reproduce every 3 months. And this becomes a very difficult situation because when the next batch of kittens hits another 6-month mark, they become reproductively fertile. And so the number of cats rises exponentially in ways that you could never imagine. You'll know when your cat is in heat at 6 months when she starts to cry and purr excessively and rub herself up against you, and the howling in particular is very distinctive that a female cat in heat does. Usually that heat cycle will last 2 to 3 weeks, and if the cat isn't impregnated at that point, it'll come back again in another 6 months. Now, critical at this point, and any owner who's had a cat in heat in the household will tell you that this is a good time to get your cat spayed if you want to get some sleep. If you're wondering what that may sound like, let's try it. Another in heat sound would be like once male and female cats are castrated or spayed, then they will inevitably be calmer, easier to deal with. They won't have any sexual interaction with other cats, and in general, it makes them much better pets. Another thing you should know if you're getting a cat is to consider insurance. Health insurance is one of those issues that is new to the veterinary scene, and we're getting used to now a lot of people carrying health insurance and using it when their cats get sick. If you're the kind of person who thinks that you may not be able to afford a major surgery should it become necessary, then you really need to consider health insurance for the life of your pet. There are a variety of different health plans available for your cat, and you're going to want to do a lot of shopping around and getting smart about these issues. Going online and searching your cat-friendly websites, which you can find a multitude of, is going to prove your best bet for figuring out which plan is right for you, should you think insurance matters.
It's really important that when you adopt a cat from a shelter, that you get their history of their diet. A lot of cats that are in a shelter environment have been waiting a little while to be adopted and have been given the same food day after day. Many adopters call and saying that the cat is having stomach problems when they get home, and it's because they changed their diet. It's really important that you stick with the same brand of food that the cat was given at the shelter. If you decide to change, buy a little bit of the brand of food that was used at the shelter and mix it with their new brand so that the cat's stomach can get adjusted to the new food.
Table feeding cats is also another issue. Some people ask me, what kind of treats can I give a cat? Sure, there are all kinds of little high-fat treats that you can purchase at the supermarket, but in general, cats do perfectly fine with little bits of protein you may want to throw their way. People think that tuna is a very bad food, and tuna indeed is not a bad food. Tuna just fed exclusively is the bad food, but almost anything fed exclusively is going to be bad for your cat. Things that you can feed your cat from the table include anything from corn to little niblets of green beans. Anything that they might want, anything that you might eat is never a bad thing to feed your cat. Now, you're going to want to know that the things that your cat is going to want to eat more are going to be things like the sushi that you brought home, or maybe some Chinese food, or maybe little bits of fried pork, or the kind of things that tend to be higher in protein and very aromatic.
You want to make sure that any treat that you give is low in fat and low in salt. Cats can get some serious diseases, one of which is pancreatitis, from eating something that is high in fat. So if you choose to give something, like my client who gives her cat potato chips, you want to choose those low salt baked chips and not the fried chips. If your cat likes tuna, your cat can have tuna out of the can. You want to choose, again, the tuna in water, or tuna that you've cooked with no spices. Chicken is fine for your cat to have as a treat, with no skin on the chicken and no bones, and use white meat chicken with no spices and no oils and no butter. So keep those things low fat and low salt. And remember, the size of your cat's stomach is very, very small. You want to break those treats up to about the quarter of the size of a dime. Now that includes the treats that you buy at the grocery store. They're usually a bit big for a cat. So we want to break them up to about a quarter the size of a dime, because we don't want your cat to gain weight. We just want him to enjoy his treats.
There are some things that cats can't eat, and that generally includes processed human foods. Like anything with artificial sweeteners, they should not be fed. Anything with xylitol in particular, which is an artificial sweetener, should be avoided.
A lot of my clients find that their cats love to be trained for baby food. And that's a great way to train a cat. But you want to make sure you read those labels. We want to avoid certain things in cats. Number one, onions. You never want to feed a cat onions, and make sure that if you choose baby food or any other type of food to give your cat, that it wasn't cooked with onions and it doesn't contain onions. Garlic is another one that you might want to avoid. Grapes and raisins are another types of foods that you should definitely try to avoid, and never use them as treats for your cat. Yet another food you want to make sure you avoid in your cat is chocolate. The baker's chocolate or the dark chocolates are the most dangerous, but just to be safe, I wouldn't ever give your cat any type of chocolate.
There's still so much we don't know about the safety of our pets' foods, but for the most part, you can address which foods you want to feed your cats based on going on the information provided by one very good website. It's called petconnection.com. This website is a great resource. They've been up to the minute on every food issue related to pet safety. One thing we like to say in veterinary medicine is that cats are not small dogs. And that really implies that cats have their own set of different situations that require that they be treated totally different than dogs. Cats are carnivores. They eat a completely different kind of diet than dogs, which are omnivores, or than us. Humans are omnivores as well. Now that may mean that your cat is going to need far more meat in his diet than you would even think possible. It's almost 70% protein in some cat diets, and you should consider that always that you need a separate bag of cat food, and never to feed your cat dog food. A lot of people believe that cats really need to eat milk or drink milk on a regular basis, and frankly, that's just not true. In fact, in many cases, it can give your cat diarrhea. Any amount of different kind of food or rich food can give any animal diarrhea if they're to consume it all of a sudden. Milk in general is not necessary. It's maybe a little capful fun treat here and there. It would be nice, but not in lieu of water. Water, fresh water, is really all a cat ever needs to drink.
I often get asked whether owners should free feed their cats. That means the food is left out all the time. Or if they should meal feed their cat. And it really comes down to owner preference and cat preference. If it's easier for you to free feed, so leave your food out all the time, that's fine. Or if it's easier for you to meal feed, that's fine too. Here are some things for you to think about when you make that decision. Free feeding can lead to obese cats, which we have a huge problem with here in the United States. So you want to make sure you keep those cats lean. It can keep them really healthy, keep them from suffering from orthopedic disease or keep them from getting diabetes. So if you're going to free feed, measure that food every morning when you put it in the bowl, and that's the amount of food you're going to give your cat. Another thing to think about is if you're going to train your cat, if you're free feeding and you are also training your cat with food, you may find that when you're ready to train, your cat's not hungry and he doesn't want to work for you. So in that case, if you're actively teaching sit or high five or lie down to your cat, you want to make sure that you are meal feeding so you can train before the meal when your cat's likely to want to actually work with you.
Exercise is a very important thing for all cat owners to get accustomed to doing with their cats. And it's a very fun thing to do. It's one of those ways of interacting with your cat that you can use to sort of play fetch with them and play with peacock feathers in their face and use little fishing poles to like dangle little mice in front of them. Cats are extremely amenable to this kind of play activity. They love it. Anything that brings out that prey drive in them, that predator instinct, that is the kind of thing that's going to be fun for you and fun for a cat, and it is going to make them lose weight. And that's the most important thing, because cats, especially when spayed or neutered, it's true, have a tendency to gain weight. Now, all cats have a tendency to gain weight after being spayed and neutered, and that's perfectly normal. But some cats have a tendency to get tremendously overweight. Tremendously overweight cats have a lot of issues that other cats don't, and it's really important for these cats to be whittled down to a normal weight. Now, a lot of times it just comes down to genetics. Some cats are just more predisposed to being overweight than other cats. Just like some people have a tendency to be overweight, some cats are just genetically going to always gain more weight or be more interested in food. And you'll also notice that some cats will just be pickers. They're not that interested in food, and they will always remain slim regardless. And it's just like people we know. Catnip and cat toys. Catnip is a very fun little herb that seems to send cats into this just heaven. They love it. What happens is that this is a natural high that will be produced in kitty cats that lasts up to 15 minutes. It makes them a little rambunctious or it makes them a little relaxed. It really depends on your kitty. And it's the kind of thing that is not dangerous. The high only lasts for 15 minutes, and then you generally have to wait another hour before you can give it again and have any effect. But it's a very interesting thing that we don't completely understand why they're affected the way they are, but it's fun to watch, and it's included in a lot of cat toys and might be a lot of fun for you to play with your cat.
Catnip is an herb that some cats respond to, and cats can respond all kinds of different ways. Some cats get a little drunk on catnip. You see they're rolling in it and eating it and covering their bodies with it. Some cats get hyperactive. They'll run around your house and run on top of your furniture and on the bed and on your dresser. And then some cats just go to sleep. There are still other cats who will become aggressive on catnip, and there are some cats that are totally unaffected. So it's a very individual reaction to catnip. If your cat is the kind of cat who does not get aggressive, then use catnip. Cats love it. It enriches their world. You can give them as much as you want to give them. You can put it inside toys. You can put it on top of things to entice a cat to jump up on something if you're training or if you're just trying to keep him off of your things. So catnip is a great way to train a cat. It's a great way to enrich his environment. But just remember that some cats can become aggressive with catnip. You want to always use caution the first couple times that you introduce catnip to your cat.
Some cats in particular might need a little extra loving care. And this is where we talk about grooming in cats. Some cats are long-haired and don't groom themselves very well, Or when they do groom themselves, they get a lot of hairballs. Hairballs are when cats will ingest a lot of hair. It will ball up in the stomach and it will cause a little irritation and it'll come right back up in very ugly ways. When cats have these very, very long-haired conditions, what tends to happen is that we like to have them go to the groomer so that they can be clipped. There's a special clip called a lion cut that we strongly recommend for kitty cats with long hair. Traveling with your cats is something that a lot of people are doing nowadays, and that's because a lot of hotels will accept your cat. The one catch is that for your safety, your cat's safety, and the hotel's liability, you want to make sure you always have a crate. Most hotels will not accept a cat without a crate, and most people should not be driving in a car with a cat on the loose, because sometimes if they're going to get scared, they're going to go right under your brake pedal. That's the first place they seem to go. So you want to make sure that you always have a safe, hard carrier with plenty of room for your kitty to stand up and turn around. If you need to take a break so that your kitty can use the restroom, open your car up and put a litter box in there and let her use the litter box, but put her right back into her crate when you're ready to drive. One reason cats are increasingly popular in the US is because cats have a reputation for being able to take care of themselves at home for long periods of time while people go on vacation. And you know what? It's true that cats are more comfortable being home alone than a dog would ever be. But leaving for the weekend with your cat all alone is not a good idea. This is definitely something you should know. They're wonderful pets and they do manage by themselves very well, but not for more than a day or two. It's also very important for you to know that you need to tag and microchip your cats. Not only tagging, which a tag that's attached to a collar that is of the breakaway variety so that your cat never gets stuck on anything with the collar, but also a little tag that has his name or her name and your phone number, at least 2 of your phone numbers, so that if you're out of town, they can reach you on an emergency line as well. In terms of microchipping, very important to do because microchips have become so popular now that they're pretty much checked by every veterinarian and every shelter that would find your cat. And we certainly learned that from Katrina, is that these animals that got lost, they lost their tags, they lost their collars, but they were able to be reunited with their owners because of their microchips. One other fun fact about cats is that cats really can find their home after being lost or locked away for long periods of time. Dogs and cats will both do this, where they'll find their way for thousands of miles. They'll end up finding their way back home. And we don't know how this happens, but we tend to think it has something to do with the same reasons migratory birds find their ways back to their nesting grounds. Another myth you should know about is the one about cats always landing on their feet. And I can tell you from seeing plenty of broken bones and ribs and legs that cats do not always land on their feet. When they jump from high places and they're in control, many times they will land perfectly well, and they have a tendency to do this far better than we ever could. But cats that live in high-rise condominiums or other heights need to be watched very carefully because they will jump. Many times, and we call this high-rise syndrome, by the way. Many times we have to create netting systems for them so that they can, or gates so that they can't get outside. Now this is very, very important because people assume that if a cat were to jump off a balcony that it would just land on its feet. And they don't. Between the floors 2 and 10, they tend to land on their feet. Above 10 floors in height, they will not. And below 2 stories high, they also have a tendency to hurt themselves. Cats and water. This is another major thing that people ask me about. Do I need to give my cat a bath? And I've got to tell you that cats really don't need baths. They tend to clean themselves, unless they have specific skin conditions, in which case we may bathe or dip them, or when a cat has an issue where they really can't clean themselves really well, and that usually occurs when they're very old or when they're very overweight. In those cases, we usually do bathe cats every 2 to 4 weeks. Again, the kind of shampoos that should be used on cats are generally very gentle, mild, non-soap shampoos, or those shampoos that are specifically medicated and that are formulated for their specific condition. But cats in general do not need to be bathed. And there's only one other reason why sometimes human dermatologists and allergists will recommend that cats be bathed. And that's because if you have allergies or skin conditions because of your cat, and that can occur, as we all know, then the thing to do would be to bathe your kitty cat at least once a month to cut down on the dander and allergens. Cats have historically been used as mousers and as chasers of all kinds of nasty little critters that might infect our homes. And for that reason, you might find that your cat becomes a very avid hunter or huntress of things in your house like cockroaches, ants, beetles, lizards if you live in the southern part of the United States or in Hawaii. Other things along those lines. And, for the most part, these little critters are not going to hurt your cat. Even mice will very rarely transmit diseases to them. However, we are finding that there's a potential for cats to be infected with bird flu should they eat birds. Again, that's another reason for your kitties to stay inside. And lizards in particular, if your cat does eat the musculature of that lizard, gross as it may sound, they can be infected with a parasite. Some owners like to have their cats sleep with them in their bed, and I'm often asked if that's an okay thing to do. And from a veterinarian's point of view, I think that's perfectly acceptable. There are no viruses, diseases, parasites that can be transmitted by that kind of close contact. And if it makes you more comfortable and more bonded to your pet, more power to you. There's an old wives' tale that babies will be smothered by cats. Now, it's funny because I hear about it all the time that people ask me whether they can keep the baby with the cat. And there tends to be no major issue with that. Although, just like with any infant sleeping on its side, on its back, on its belly with a whole lot of stuffed animals, in that same way, cats should not be allowed to sleep in the crib with the baby for the exact same reason that stuffies shouldn't be there with the baby. Just as with children and dogs, you should always monitor children and cats. Cats can scratch your children, cats can bite your children, and just like with any animal, sometimes things happen. So you want to be there to monitor them and make sure that everybody gets along well. There are a lot of myths about cats and cat ownership. The biggest one is that most people believe that their cats need absolutely no care beyond feeding and maybe changing a litter box. And the reality is that this is a serious myth. Their cats need absolutely far more care than you could ever imagine. Your presence in their lives is stabilizing and is required for your kitty cat to be healthy. Again, these are issues related to keeping tabs on their eating, drinking, and definitely on their litter box habits.
Most cats coming from a shelter environment are already litter trained. However young they may be, they've already been trained. So it's a great benefit taking them to your home. An important thing to remember is that when taking a cat from a shelter environment, that they come from a very small living space. And it's important when you first take them home to confine them to one room, and that room needs to be where their litter box is located so that they can learn the location of their litter box. After the 3 weeks, you can give them access to your whole entire house and they'll know exactly where to go to use the litter box. Just make sure you remember to clean the litter box once a day.
So let's talk about litter box environment. The first thing we want to do is give cats a big bathroom. So a big box. Boxes need to be roughly 20 inches, 24 inches by 36 inches. So that's a pretty big box. That's bigger than most boxes you'll find in your local stores. Give your cat a big box to use. Put 2 or 3 inches of your cat's favorite litter in that box. And the way you find your cat's favorite litter is you give your cat some choices. Line 3 boxes up next to each other, each with a different litter, and leave those boxes down for about 2 weeks. In that time, your cat will let you know which litter he prefers, and that's the litter you're going to stick with. Make sure that you're cleaning every single soiled area, so every area where your cat has marked with an enzymatic cleaner. That's a cleaner that denatures the proteins that are in the urine that make sure it has smell in the first place. There are lots of enzymatic cleaners out there on the market. Make sure you're cleaning daily every single marked spot with that cleaner. Cats can urinate and defecate outside of the box for multiple reasons. First, they could be medically ill. They could have a urinary tract infection or constipation. So it's always a good idea to bring your cat to your veterinarian first and make sure that they're healthy. Cats can also urinate outside the box because of environmental reasons, because their environment's not enriched, or because there are other cats in the environment that are stressing them. They can also urinate outside the box because their box is not to their liking, or their box could be positioned in a place in the home where they're afraid to go or where it's noisy. For example, many of us keep our litter boxes in the laundry room because it's convenient to clean it in that area or close to the garbage. But if you think about it, laundry rooms are very noisy. Washing machines go off and they get unsettled, and dryers do the same thing. And what happens is cats get afraid. And if they're afraid of those noises while they're going to the bathroom in the box, what can happen is they can run away from the box and never go back there. But they can go on your bed, it's soft, they can view the environment, and it's quiet there. So cats learn actually to be repelled from the box because of how scary the washer and dryer are. And they learn that they can go to the bathroom on your bed and it's clean and it's soft and you clean it up immediately and it's not very scary there. So there's a lot of learning that goes on with cats urinating and defecating outside the box. Remember that your cat is not being spiteful. He doesn't dislike you, and he's not angry that you left the house and left him alone. He's learning through trial and error what places in the home are safe and comfortable for him to go to the bathroom. So what can you do? The first thing you want to do is look at where your box is. Is it someplace the cat can get to? Is it someplace that is within the area where he spends his time? If it's on the first floor and he spends a lot of his time on the third floor, he may not be able to go down all those stairs to go to the bathroom. Another thing we want to do is enlarge the size of that box. Let's get a nice big bathroom for your cat. 20 inches by 36 inches, a nice big box. Make sure you have the litter your cat likes by giving him a lot of choices and then offering him the litter in those boxes that he really enjoys. Try to use about 2 to 3 inches of litter. Cats seem to like that amount of litter. They also seem to prefer to have litter that is clumping or clay type as opposed to other types of litter.
Let's talk about spraying. Spraying is something that both male and female cats do. A lot of people don't believe that female cats can do this. And this is spraying, again, when they emit urine on vertical surfaces. And cats usually will do this when they're displeased. This is one of the cardinal signs of cats being angry or disturbed or stressed. And it occurs infrequently or more infrequently with females, but it definitely lets you know that that female is very upset.
Urine marking, otherwise known as spraying, is another normal cat behavior. It's hard to hear that because it's very, very disappointing when your cat urinates in your house, but it is a normal behavior. So why do cats spray? They spray, first of all, because they're marking territory. If there's a cat outside that they see, they're likely to spray in your home to let that cat know that this is where I live and that you can't come in my area. They also spray for sexual reasons, so if your cat is not neutered and he's spraying in your house, now is the time to get him neutered. They also spray because they're anxious, because something in the environment is not right, whether that be that there are too many cats in your household for this cat to adjust to, or whether the litter box environment is not right. All those things can cause anxiety and cause a cat to spray in your home. So what do? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to try to identify where the deficits are in your cat's environment. Are there stray cats outdoors? What can we do about that? You can catch the cats and bring them to your local humane society. You can put repellents outside of your home to repel the cats. You also can talk to your neighbors. If they're your neighbors' cats, you can talk to them and see if maybe they might keep their cats indoors. What about your own home? Look around your house and look at the cat's litter box environment. Actually, by changing the cat's litter box environment, you can decrease spraying by up to 50%.
Any urine odor from a cat, whether it's from spraying or from urinating on horizontal surfaces, that can be eliminated to a certain extent by the use of enzymatic cleaners. These cleaners are usually liquid-based and they need to be soaked into the furnishing or the carpeting or whatever surface has been affected. It's really important to do this because cats will often go back to those areas to urinate again once they sense their odor is there. And other cats that may not have urinated there may be attracted to it. as well. So these are important things to clean with always.
Owners with cats who urinate or defecate outside of the box, whether it be spraying or just elimination on a horizontal surface, often ask me which enzymatic cleaners I recommend. I like to use Anti-Icky Poo. It's got a funny name, but it works really well. And also, there's one called Nature's Miracle that you can also use. There's another product on the market that works fairly well called Zero Odor. It's not an enzymatic cleaner, but it really does eliminate the odor. So those are 3 great options for people who have animals, whether it be dogs or cats, eliminating in the house. What most people don't know is that scratching is a normal cat behavior. It sharpens the claws, it takes the cuticle off of the claws, and it also leaves a visual and a scent marker for other cats as they come along in that cat's territory. So it's a normal behavior for your cat to exhibit. Unfortunately, it's a behavior that we don't love because it destroys our couches and our chairs and our furniture and our doorways. So what we have to think about is how can we channel that natural behavior and put it to good use, because cats love to scratch. What you can do is you can buy your cat trees with appropriate surfaces for your cat to scratch on. So if your cat loves your leather couch, then go and buy some old pieces of leather from your fabric store and wrap your cat tree in that fabric so your cat can have its choice of substrates. Then move your cat tree to a prominent place. What a lot of people do is they want to put their cat tree back in the back bedroom because it's not very attractive. But cats don't want to leave a visual marker in the back bedroom. They want to leave it in a prominent place. So make sure you put that cat tree out in the middle of the living room and let your cat learn to scratch on it. You can use catnip spray. You can use food. You can use herb-style catnip to draw your cat to that cat tree. And every time he scratches on his cat tree, praise him and tell him he's the smartest cat ever and give him a great cat treat for doing that. Then, slowly over time, you're going to move that cat tree to the place where you think it should go, but only when your cat begins to use it. In the meantime, you're going to make sure that the areas that you don't want him to scratch on are either blocked or there's something there that he doesn't like. So for example, you can use contact paper, which is the sticky paper you use to line your drawers with in your kitchen and in your bedroom, and put it sticky side up on the places where your cat usually scratches. And as he steps on it, you'll see he'll shake his paws and he won't like the way that it feels, and it'll repel him from that place in your home, so he won't scratch there.
A certain percentage of cats will nonetheless, in spite of scratching posts and all kinds of fun toys you may give them, they may still scratch your furnishings. In these cases, there are several things that you can do. One, you can try and retrain them to use a scratching post by maybe applying some attractive agents that you can get at pet stores to the scratching post so the cats are more excited by it, maybe putting some catnip on it so that they're more excited by it, and by trying to scare them a little bit when they do use the surfaces that you don't want them to use. I use a spray bottle with water in it anytime a kitty cat does something like that, because it scares them, but it doesn't make them scared of you because they don't so much associate that water with you. Now, the one thing you should know also is that cats that will continue to do this in spite of all your ministrations, you can apply little claw covers to their claws called soft paws. And soft paws are excellent because they keep cats from scratching you if you happen to have very sensitive skin, or they'll also keep them from scratching the furniture and actually destroying it. Now, let's talk about declawing. Declawing is one of those issues that is very controversial in the veterinary community and is also controversial among cat lovers. Now, when your cat is declawed, when a cat is declawed, and most cats don't need to be declawed, so that you know, and there are many alternatives to declawing, so that you know, but when a cat is declawed, what happens is that the first piece of their toe is removed because the claw, just like your fingernail, is attached to that first part of your digit. That's important for you to know because this is essentially an amputation of 10 tips of toes. And so you should recognize that it's very painful for a cat. Now, that's not to say that no cat should ever be declawed. There are some cases where a cat, in order to remain an indoor cat and be safer indoors as it should be, needs to be declawed for that owner to be able to keep the kitty in that condition. If that's the case, then declawing is sometimes your best bet.
It was thought in days past that if you didn't want your cat to be destructive, you should declaw them. A lot of people don't realize that declawing a cat is the equivalent of cutting off our toes. If you would cut off a human's toes, they would totally lose their balance and probably have back problems later in life. Studies and research show that every cat that's declawed will eventually have back problems later in life. It's actually, in modern times, in 2007 that we're living, considered an inhumane practice. It's really, really important that if you don't want your cat to scratch up your furniture, that you give them the appropriate outlets like scratching posts to be able to file their nails down. If you absolutely need the cat not to scratch anything at all, there's actually something really, really great that just came out called soft claws or soft caps. They're little rubber tips that you can get applied to the cat's nails. They come in all different types of colors, and you glue them onto their nails. You glue the rubber tips onto their nails, and they're still able to use their claws and exercise their claws, but their claws don't do any damage. The soft claws can be applied by any groomer. You can buy them in pretty much any pet supply store and have to be replaced every 6 weeks. It's really, really important that every potential cat owner really considers this option before declawing. Most cats that are declawed actually wake up during anesthesia because the procedure is actually so painful. Really important that everybody considers the other options before going so far as to declaw a cat.
Cats are very different in their personalities. Some cats are almost dog-like and lovable and all over you all the time, and other cats are very aloof and standoffish, while other cats are fraidy cats. They're stressed and they like to hide and they like to not let you see what they're doing. They're very secretive. And other cats can be just downright aggressive. This happens in a small percentage of cases, but those aggressive cats can sometimes be very difficult to keep indoors. And there are behaviorists who work with these cats, and I would recommend that approach. But as Ira said, these are a very small percentage of most cats. The kind of things that tend to cause cats stress are things that we humans do, like go on vacations, like leave them alone for a little too long, and that would be something out of the ordinary. They don't like any changes in their routine. Sometimes even changing the litter or changing their food bowls or changing their food. Any sort of change that is something that they were very particularly attached to is going to represent a big issue for a cat that you might see displayed in ways you'd rather not. Another major stressor for a cat is the introduction of another cat in the household. Other cats in the household are probably the biggest stresses to cats, and sometimes even other people in the household should you have company over. But cats are very territorial, and so when other cats are introduced into the household, they will take a long time in many cases to become accustomed to that cat, and they will definitely display their displeasure in ugly ways.
There's a lot of reasons why your cat might bite you. The first reason might be because he's playing. Many of us play with our cats inappropriately when they're young kittens. We put our hands on their bellies and rub their bellies until they bite our hands and scratch with their back feet, or we'll grab their head with our hands and move our hands around until they bite. But unfortunately, when they get to be 10 or 11 pounds, those bites are not very comfortable. So make sure when you get your kitten, you're not playing with the kitten inappropriately. And that's one of the best ways to avoid biting as an adult cat. Sometimes cats will bite owners as well when they're uncomfortable, or when they're painful in a certain area, or when they're picked up and they're uncomfortable. So make sure that there's no pain associated with times when you touch your cat. The best way to do that, of course, is to go and see your veterinarian and have a thorough physical exam done on your kitty. Some cats, even though they're not painful, really don't appreciate being petted in certain parts of the body. And one of the most common places is down the back and at the base of the tail. So if your cat doesn't like that type of petting, you want to make sure you keep the petting from the shoulders up. Cats groom each other and interact with each other mainly from the shoulders up, so we want to do the same thing. If your cat is stalking you and pouncing on you from around the corner, he may just be playing with you. And what we need to make sure we do in that case is enrich his environment. He needs predatory toys. He needs things he can run after and pounce on and kill. So look for motorized toys, things that are fuzzy, things that move like prey, that move like little mice. So when you come home in the afternoon from work after your long, hard day and your cat's ready to pounce on you from around the corner, you can just throw this toy instead, and he'll play with the toy instead of pouncing on you. You know, cats are not little dogs. They have a whole different way of communicating, and it's a good idea for each cat owner to get to know their cat's body language. So we're going to go over that for a couple of seconds. The confident cat has ears that are forward. You can see into the ear just by looking head on to the cat. Sometimes they'll rotate them a little bit, but for the most part, the ears are forward. Their tail is usually sloping down off their back with a little curve, and their head is held at the line of their back or a little bit higher. Cats who are confident, their pupils are of normal size. Take a look at your cat's eyes. You'll notice that the pupil size, the black part of the eye, is a little bit oval. So that means the pupil is small and the cat's relaxed. That's a confident cat. Now, let's think about the fearful cat. The fearful cat has big, round pupils. That dark black part of the eye is really wide. Sometimes you can't even see the colored part of the eyes at all. They hiss, they spit, they might lie down in a position I call the meatloaf position, where the legs are underneath the kitty cat and they're kind of just huddled down. They might actually turn onto their side a little bit as well. That's a fearful cat, and those are the cats you want to make sure you move slowly with, cautiously, and use positive reinforcement in order to gain their trust. Some cats like to chew on blankets or wool or your clothing, and then some cats even ingest wool and clothing and blankets. The first thing you want to think about always is, does your cat have a digestive problem? So bring your cat to your veterinarian and have him or her examined to make sure he's healthy. If your veterinarian determines it's a behavioral problem, what can you do? You want to think about giving your cat appropriate things to chew on. So rawhide that's been soaked a little bit, beef jerky that might be soaked in water, it's a little bit soft, cat grasses. Remember to make sure you buy a pet-safe cat grass. Don't just give your cat any type of grass. Your cat might also enjoy catnip, which is something he can chew on. Toys that he can chew on that are stuffed with catnip might also help. And you want to make sure that you are not rewarding this behavior. So remember that your cat is learning constantly how to behave and how to interact with you and his environment. So when he's chewing on that wool blanket, if that's the only time he gets attention from you, he's going to keep chewing on that blanket. You want to make sure that he doesn't get positive reward from you for chewing on the blanket. So what do? Distract him by clapping your hands or calling his name, and then redirect him to a toy he can chew on, or to a rawhide chewy or a beef jerky chewy, so then he knows what you don't like because you've distracted him, but he also knows what you want him to do, which is chew on appropriate surfaces. Some cats like to chew on grass or even your houseplants. The first thing you want to think about is whether or not the plants in your home are toxic to your pet. You can check with your veterinarian and make sure that you don't have any toxic plants in your home. Lilies are especially dangerous, so when you get those beautiful flower arrangements for Mother's Day and for Valentine's Day, check for lilies and immediately take them out of your arrangement so your cat doesn't eat them. If your cat just likes to eat your plants and they're not toxic to him, what we want to do is give that cat something that he can chew on that's appropriate. There are cat grasses that you can purchase, and you also can grow your own catnip. You can buy the seeds and grow it for your cat, and then your cat can enjoy chewing on that. And it's safe for him to eat that, and he can get his chewing need out. I happen to be one of those people that owns a cat that talks all the time. He tells me all about his day, whether it be morning or night, 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 6:30 in the evening. Ted is telling me how he feels that day. And although I love that he loves me, boy, that crying and moaning can become very, very irritating when I'm trying to sleep. So what can you do? First, try to figure out why your cat is crying. Some older cats get cognitive dysfunction. They get a little dementia as they get older. So keep that in mind, that maybe as your cat's aging, he's becoming a little confused. So that's one thing that might be going on. If your cat suddenly starts crying and he's not a cat like mine who's cried his whole life, think about bringing him to your veterinarian, because cats who are ill can moan and cry, definitely. Another reason that cats cry at night is because they want something from you, attention or food, or they want to be let out. You want to make sure you never reinforce that behavior, and boy, that can be really, really hard. For example, your cat comes and wakes you up because he's hungry, and because you have to go to work tomorrow morning, you get up and feed him. So what has he learned? He's learned that if I wake mom up, she feeds me. So what's he going to do the next night? He's going to wake you up. So when your cat cries at night, you want to make sure you shut him out of your room or put him in a separate room, that you never reinforce that behavior ever. If you find that your cat's really, really persistent like mine, we'll have to use other measures. For example, an automatic feeder is a great idea. Automatic feeders supply food to your cat on a schedule. So if you find that your cat's alarm clock goes off at about 4 and your alarm clock goes off at about 5 a.m., that cat food container is going to open up at 3:45 a.m. So your cat's going to eat. He has no reason to wake you up because his tummy is full, he's already eaten his food, and he didn't have a chance to learn the wrong behavior because you fed him before he started crying. A lot of owners talk to me about punishment. How can I punish my cat? How can I correct that behavior? And I try to refocus them on how can we just teach the cat the correct behavior instead of focusing on the negative. One thing that I find owners do a lot is tap cats on the head or spray them with water bottles. That can make cats afraid of you. It also can make cats aggressive towards you, and you never want those things to happen. What we want to do instead is teach alternate behaviors with positive reinforcement. For example, if you have a cat who pounces on you from around the corner because he's trying to play with you, and you spray him with water bottle, at that moment, you might stop that behavior. But the next time he interacts with you, he's going to come back and pounce on you harder because he's going to be afraid of you. Now, it won't just be play, it'll be fear plus play, and that's much more dangerous. Also, you want your cat to trust you because there are going to be times in his life, like when he's at the veterinarian, where he has to trust you over and above anyone else. So we don't ever want to frighten your cat. So what can you do with that cat who's pouncing on you? Train the cat to sit. So when you come in that door, you can say, "Cat, sit," and there he is, and you can give him a treat. So you've taken his need to interact with you and his desire to be with you, have turned it into something wonderful, a trained cat. How much fun is that? Also, you could throw a toy at that time, a toy he could chase after and kill, right? So he still has that drive to play, he still gets it out of his system, but he doesn't get it out on your legs. So we always try to take a step back when we see our cats doing something inappropriate and think about, is that a natural behavior or not? And what can I do to redirect my cat and to train him to do something that is alternate, some other behavior that he can do that will satisfy his drive to perform predatory behavior, to perform play. We don't want to punish, and we never, ever want to physically punish a cat. Let's talk a little bit about clicker training. That is my all-time favorite way to train a cat. There are lots of ways to train a cat, but it seems easiest for most owners to use clicker training. A clicker is a small plastic or metal device that makes a sound. Like its name, it makes a click. And you pair that sound with food. So you click and then hand your cat a treat. Click and treat. So now, whenever your cat performs an appropriate behavior, you click, and your cat knows that he's done something right, and he comes to you for the treat. What it allows you to do is tell your cat he's correct, even when he's way across the room from you. There's no way you can get there and give him a treat that fast, but you can click and let him know he's correct. So we use clicker training, which, by the way, you can find out more information about at www.clickertraining.com. There's a wealth of information there, and there's books you can purchase and DVDs to show you how to train your cat with clicker training. When your cat is sitting in front of you, as he often probably does, to get petted, you start to click and treat him for that behavior. Click and treat. So he starts to learn, there's something about sitting in front of her, and she really likes that. She gives me cookies when I do that. Eventually, he'll come up to you and sit at you and look at you like, where's my click? Where's my treat? That's when you go ahead and start adding the word. Pussycat, sit, good boy, click and treat. Soon when you say sit, he will be sitting in front of you to get his treat, just like a dog. Once your cat is trained to sit, using clicker training or any other type of training, you're going to drop the clicker so you won't be using it anymore to reward your cat, and you're going to go to what is called variable reinforcement. It means that sometimes your cat gets a treat for sitting and sometimes he doesn't get a treat. Now remember, if you never ever reward your cat again for sitting, he's going to stop sitting for you. You have to reward him sometimes for performing the correct behavior, but it doesn't have to be every time. And actually, it's most effective if it's variable, meaning that sometimes he gets a treat for the first, second, and third sit, and sometimes he has to wait till the 10th sit to get a treat. By using variable reinforcement, you'll keep that behavior strong, and he'll be sitting like a champ for the rest of his life. Owners sometimes ask me if they can walk their cat when they walk their dog. You can walk your cat, but it takes a lot of time and patience. There are specific harnesses made for cats. You want to make sure that when you buy a cat harness, that it's one your cat cannot slip out of. You may have to experiment and buy a couple and try them on your cat. Then you're going to start by attaching a leash and just letting your cat walk around the house with the leash on. Now, some cats you'll see that they sort of have harness paralysis. You put the harness on and they fall over. But give them some time. Use a little something to entice them. Some treat they like, whether it be a store-bought treat or something that they like around the house. And I even have one patient who works really hard to earn a potato chip from his owner. So anything your cat likes that is not harmful to him, he can have in this instance. Sort of entice him to move with the harness on. And once he starts moving, reward him with a positive reinforcement, some type of treat that he likes. Then start to take him outside. And you want to take him on very short walks. Cats are not like dogs, they can't go for 3 miles. But on short walks, he'll probably take frequent rest stops to roll around in the grass and sniff other animals, and that's fine. Walking your cat is a great way to enrich his environment and to get energy out, and also to socialize him, which is something cats don't get a lot of. One caveat, you want to make sure that your neighborhood is safe. If you have a neighborhood with a lot of dogs running loose that might be aggressive towards your cat or hurt your cat, or a lot of stray cats who might hurt your cat, walking your cat outside of your yard is probably not a good idea. You might try in that instance walking in your backyard, or taking your cat to a public place where you can walk with him, like a park.
Cats are really, really smart animals. It's a really common misconception that cats are not trainable, but they are super, super trainable. They learn really, really fast, and they do really well with positive reinforcement and praise. In other words, if the cat does something good and the cat's not pulling on the harness, you should give them a treat. But usually within a couple weeks, you should have your cat set up and walking on a harness.
Often inquire about behavior appointments, and they want to know how it's different from the typical veterinary appointment. Well, the first thing is that it's much, much longer. Depending on which veterinary behaviors you see, appointments can be anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. A lot of that time is spent getting a good history and viewing the environment that your cat is in. Often by the time we see cats with problems, aggression problems, spraying outside the box, urinating outside the box, all of those problems, it's become a chronic problem. It's gone on a long time, so an accurate history is extraordinarily important. We might also ask to view the environment in your home, for you to bring a video or to bring still photographs or to actually visit your home so that we can see the environment the cat is living in. Once we have a good history, we'll give you a list of diagnoses so you know what's going on with your cat. And then we'll talk about treatment. Treatment is going to be 4-pronged. Number 1, safety. We don't want you to get bitten. We don't want animals in your house to get bitten. We want everyone to stay safe. We'll work on that. Number 2, we're going to work on environmental changes. Almost always there's something we can do about the environment the cat lives in that will alter its behavior. Number 3, we talk about behavior modification. So that's training. That's teaching your cat alternate behaviors, tools to use when he's anxious or frightened instead of biting you. And number 4, we look at medical problems and we talk about medications. A lot of times, a medical problem can predispose a cat to be aggressive towards its owner, especially when touched in a certain way. So your cat will get a physical exam at your veterinary behavior appointment. He or she may have lab work done as well, and any tests that are appropriate for that particular disorder. And then medications. What kind of medications would you give a cat? Owners often say, I don't want my cat to be a zombie. I don't want my cat medicated. Well, we use medications that would be used in an anxious person as well. Medications like Prozac, Zoloft, and Paxil. These are anti-anxiety medications that can be used in cats. Now, medication is not your cure-all. It's not going to fix the problem. But in many cases, it can dramatically change the animal's overall attitude without making him sedated, without making him a zombie, so you will be able to implement the changes that will fix the problem. And that's the key, is that those behavior modification changes and those environmental changes actually cure the problem, but you sometimes need that medication to sort of help you through the rough spots. So when you go see your veterinary behaviorist, now you know what to expect, and remember that no matter what problem your cat has, you can get help.
Hi, my name is Shana Karanko and I'm a Pet First Aid and CPR instructor. I've been doing it for about 4 years after having an incident with one of my young puppies. Pet First Aid and CPR is getting prepared for something in the event of an emergency prior to getting regular veterinary care. Primary pet assessment means that you're only going to encounter 3 situations in any kind of emergency. The first one is the animal's acting odd, and we know that the animal is breathing and has a heart rate. When that happens, we know that we need to perform first aid. The second is when the animal is not breathing but still has a heart rate, which means we need to breathe for that animal, and that is called rescue breathing. The third is when the animal doesn't have a heart rate and is not breathing, we will need to perform CPR. The snout to tail assessment is a systematic way of checking our animals, whether it's our guinea pig, to a cat, to a dog, to a horse, in basically giving them a gentle massage, but systematically knowing that everything is okay. We need to know what our animals feel like when they're well in order to determine quickly if there's something wrong. Remember that animals will mask an injury or an illness because they don't want to become prey. So what you're going to do is very slowly and only as fast as the animal allows you to do so, you're going to go literally from their snout to their tail, touching every inch of your animal. Look inside the eyes, look inside the nose, the mouth, the ears. Run your fingers down their shoulders, down their legs, on their chest. Check for anything that would be abnormal, whether it could be a cyst or lack of hair in one area. Maybe the animal is tender in a certain area. You need to know what is healthy in your pet in order to determine if there's something wrong with them. One of the things that's very important, and I want you to remember, is an animal's body will pull resources from their coat, skin, pads of paws to attack or preserve any internal organ. So if your dog, cat, guinea pig, or horse is shedding excessively, you want to make sure that first of all they're getting proper nutrition, and second of all that they get checked out by a veterinarian. You want to make sure that that blowing of the coat is normal and that it's not just pulling resources from the coat and skin in order to attack something that's going on internally. Insect bites and stings in cats is actually very uncommon. Cats are very cautious by nature. In the event that they should get stung by a bee or any other kind of insect, and you actually discover the injury site, you want to watch for unusual swelling. Should this happen, you want to get emergency veterinarian care and watch it, and your doctor will tell you what they're going to prescribe and what you should be giving your animal. Most animals choke on something that is readily available, such as their own toys. They could be just about anything that you have around, anything that the animal is playing with. In order to go ahead and avoid this, we want to make sure that they're getting approved toys and treats. But should the animal start to choke, first you want to place it in a contained area. Don't use the bedroom because the animal can get underneath the bed and then you'll have a different challenge to trying to get it out. Use a utility room. If you can still hear that the dog or cat has an exchange of air, let them be in that quiet area for about 15 minutes. Usually they're able to cough it up themselves. If you start to see that the dog is in distress or the cat is in distress, you want to go ahead and help them. There is a myth out there that you can use the human Heimlich maneuver, and you don't want to use that. You're actually going to use chest thrust in order to help the animal out. And then the third one is if the animal goes unconscious, you're going to basically go back to your CPR practice and start to try to dislodge that stuck item, whether it goes in or out, and then transport to the veterinarian. Poisoning in animals is anything that is foreign that goes into their system or on top of their coat. The first thing that you need to do is to identify the suspect substance and then call your local or 1-800 poison control. They will determine what your process should be. You never want to induce vomiting if it's any kind of petroleum-based substance. And when you're trying to clean anything off the coat, you're going to use copious amounts of water, but you want to ensure that you don't spread it to the rest of the skin. But your first phone call needs to be to poison control. Pets and seizures. Seizures usually happens from either poisoning or from an accident, or it could be an illness that the cat, dog, or any other animal already has. The first thing that you want to do is you want to go ahead and calm the environment that the animal is in. Try to get anything away from the animal where it could hurt themselves. You could put a small towel underneath the head to avoid further injury. And then you need to make sure that you stand away from the animal, as while they're semi-conscious, unconscious, when they come back, they may not recognize you, and it's nothing personal. But you want to make sure that you give them enough space and quiet time. If a seizure, such as epilepsy, is normal in your animal, you want to make a note of how often is it happening. Is it happening more often, less often, or with more intense than any other time, and let your veterinary know. If it's the first time that it's ever happened to your animal, it requires veterinary care. If it's something that, as we said, was normal in your animal, you just want to update your veterinarian on the intensity and frequency of the episodes. Cats are very different. They are considered feral animals, which means that they are wild animals. And in order to go ahead and help them, your best option is going to be to restrain the animal and get it to a veterinarian for emergency care. A cat is not going to allow you to help it as well as easiest as a dog will. You want to go ahead and make sure that you're safe, the cat is safe, and this could be anything from an injury to an illness that would require emergency veterinarian care. Cat restraining and muzzling is going to be one of the most important things to keep yourself safe. With cats, you're going to need either a cat bag, a sweatshirt, or a towel to go ahead and cover the cat completely. It's going to be almost impossible to muzzle a cat. And remember, they've got 4 paws with nails, plus a mouth with teeth that can do a lot of damage. For an example, a cat who has been hit by a car or any other type of accident is going to try to inflict as much pain as it feels onto whoever's trying to help it. Remember that it's an animal, and they are going to try to go ahead and get themselves to their own safety area as opposed to allowing you to help it. So remember, keep yourself safe, cover the animal completely, and get it to the vet. Rescue breathing for your pet means that you're going to actually breathe for the animal. It could mean that the animal has taken in poison, has collapsed due to an injury or an illness. It just simply means you're going to breathe for the animal. The animal still has a heart rate. The first thing that you're going to do is pull the tongue past the canines. You're going to create a seal after you've swept the mouth for anything obstructing the airway. Create a seal with your hands, and you're going to give 2 slow breaths through the snout. Look for the rise and fall of the chest to make sure that the air is going in. Make sure that you're not trying to put too much air into the animal, especially if they're very small. If air is going in, but the animal still has not regained consciousness and cannot breathe on its own, you're going to continue to breathe for this animal until emergency help arrives or you're able to transport. Feline CPR is when we need to go ahead and breathe for the cat as well as massage their heart. What this means is the animal is not breathing on its own and does not have a heartbeat. This could be from poisoning, a car injury, an illness that requires us to do whatever we can for this animal. How we're going to start CPR for this little kitty is we're going to pull their tongue past their canines. We're going to go ahead and breathe into their snout, into their nose. Watch for the rise and fall of the chest, which means the air is going in. We're going to do this twice. After that, we're going to put our hands across the chest and we're going to massage the heart. On a cat, because they are so small in comparison to a dog, you're just going to use your middle finger and your thumb, and you're going to do it. You're going to pump the heart 15 times. Once you've done that, you're going to go back to do 2 breaths. Look for the rise and fall of the chest. Continue to do this for 4 cycles. Once those 4 cycles are done, you're going to go ahead and check again for an exchange of breath and heartbeat. If it does not come back, you're going to continue to do it for another 4 cycles until you can get emergency veterinary care or transport. Everybody should have a pet first aid kit in their home, car, when you go hiking. And it's very important for you to go ahead and buy a basic kit that they sell at your local pet store. And from there, you need to customize it. You need to partner with your veterinarian as to what kind of emergency medications you may need, anything that would be specific to your breed or type of animal, and ensure that everything that you're going to need is in there. In addition, you need to know how to use what's in your pet first aid kit and partner with your veterinarian so that you make sure that you have everything that you need. We've been talking about pet first aid and CPR and knowing what to do in the event of an emergency. But one of the best maintenance programs is to have your animal on a high nutritious food so that way they're getting all the balance that they need internally and externally. Make sure that your pet is trained and that there's a line of communication so that you both understand each other. And that will actually keep your pet out of trouble, minimizing the times that you will have to use your pet first aid kit. You may never need the skills that you have learned in pet first aid, but it certainly does give you peace of mind when you know what to do without panicking in the event of an emergency.
My name is Lynn Ratchkiss, and I've been working with cats for about 2.5 to 3 years in the areas of problem behaviors, nutrition, and overall health of the cat. When bringing home your new cat or kitten, one of the first things that you'll want to consider is their toilet area, the litter box. The best way to get started is to just purchase a regular rectangular litter box. Some cats prefer covered, some cats like a litter box that fits into a corner. But to begin with, to start out, the basic thing, just get a plastic rectangular litter box with some sort of feet on the bottom so that the box itself doesn't slide when the cat steps into it. If a cat steps into the litter box and it shoots out from underneath them, they may not return to that litter box. So make sure that the litter box is secure. Make sure that your litter box is in a private area. The cat will need some place that's relatively quiet, low traffic. in and out of the room, and that'll encourage them to use the litter box. Your litter there's a lot of different kinds of litter out there. One of the things to look for is a no silica or low silica formula, because silica gets into the air. If you have any kind of upper respiratory problem, asthma, breathing difficulties, silica can enter your bronchial tubes and aggravate that. So you want to make sure that the litter itself is low silica or no silica. It also sticks to your air conditioner coils and heating coils and causes you to have to clean those more often. There are a lot of different kinds of cat litter out there. One thing to avoid is silica or any kind of dust that comes up into the air and enters the cat's sinuses or enters your own sinuses and gets into your bronchial tubes. There's pine litter, cedar litter, litter made out of newspaper, litter made out of corn, litter that will change color when your cat urinates, litter that will change color if your cat has a pH difficulty in their urine, so that you can see that there might be a problem there. So there's just an absolute cornucopia of different kinds of litter. Choosing is personal to you. A couple things to consider are, how are you going to dispose of the litter? A number of litters cannot be flushed through the sewage system. So you'll be scooping and placing those into a garbage bag, and that'll be going in with your regular garbage. The biodegradable litters can be both flushable and not flushable. So if your plan is to scoop and flush through the sewer system, you'll want to look for the labeling on the front that tells you the litter is safe to use that way. You'll want to clean the litter box at least once a day. Don't over clean the actual plastic litter box at first, when you first get your cat or kitten, because you want them to be able to smell that they've been there before. If you continually dump the litter every single day and scrub the box out, they may not return because they can't smell that they've been there before. So clean out your litter once a day, clean out the box itself once a day, empty the litter about once a week, and wash your litter box completely about every 2 weeks. Choosing the food for your new cat or kitten can be difficult. There are a lot of varieties out there. One of the first things to remember is cats are what is called obligate carnivores, which is to say, cats absolutely, positively, and beyond any shadow of a doubt must have meat. They can live on 100% meat protein. They don't need vegetables, they don't need fruits, they don't need cranberries, any of those things. So as an obligate carnivore, you can see where it would be silly of us and remiss of us, looking at the cat or kitten's overall health, to feed them a food that's high in vegetable proteins, carbohydrates, and useless sugars. So when reading the label, look for the first 5 ingredients. If you see carbohydrates, vegetables, corn, fruits in the first 5 ingredients, walk away from that food. You'll want to look for, cats can actually live on 100% meat protein. So when you think about that, looking for a quality food that contains almost completely meat protein. Cats do not do well on dry food, dry kibble. A lot of people feed dry kibble. It's much more convenient. You can leave it out all day. It's easier to keep track of and store. But in all honesty, cats are very small in stature for the most part, and they're moving around a lot, very agile, and they dehydrate easily. So if you immediately bring home your cat or kitten and put down a bowl of dry kibble with water next to it, cats don't naturally like to drink a lot of water. So if it was my cat or kitten, I would feed 100% wet food. 50-50, 50% wet, 50% dry is acceptable. 75% wet, 25% dry if you absolutely need to. But if it's at all possible for you to feed your cat or kitten 100% wet food, I strongly urge you to do that. You're going to save yourself so much money over the long run in veterinary bills and health issues dealing with the bladder and the urine, the pH, the balance in the urine, and keeping your cat's kidneys healthy. On the cat food label, when you're reading through, whether it's wet food or dry food, understand that the ingredients list starts with what weighs the most. What I mean by that is the contents, the ingredients are listed by weight. So if the first ingredient says ground yellow corn, if I have an ear of corn and I have a piece of meat the same size, you can imagine how much lighter the corn is. So since things are listed by weight, if the heaviest thing in the bag or in the can is corn, then you can imagine just how much corn is actually inside of the bag. So remember that. It's not like if I buy beef stew for humans and the first ingredient is water, and then it says beef, and then it says peas and carrots. That's by how much is in the, by volume. How much is in the can. For dog food, it's by weight, and cat food, it's by weight. So think about that when you're reading the label. So you want to look for meats at the very beginning, and then the added vitamins and minerals. Cats don't need cranberries and blueberries and peas and carrots. They wouldn't eat them in the wild. They don't need them in your house. So in order to maintain, because their digestive system doesn't work like ours, it doesn't work like a dog's, pure 100% meat protein, and your cat will be just fine with that. So get the best food that you can find by reading the label. It doesn't mean it has to be the most expensive food that's out there. Make sure you're paying for what's in the can, not the name that's on the label. A lot of big companies have a lot of advertising and overhead, and the consumer pays that bill for that advertising and overhead. So go off the beaten path when you're looking. Look for some names that perhaps you haven't noticed before or seen before, and pick up and take a moment and read what's actually inside of the food. You'll be happier in the long run. Your cat will be healthier. Your health bills will be lower. You won't have problem behaviors that deal with the digestive system and the urinary tract, bladder, etc. So when you're looking at overall health, there's no reason that your cat can't live for 20 years plus if you're feeding the right kind of food. So stick with that. Stick with super high meat protein. Try and stay within the realm of the wet. Use dry as little as possible if you absolutely must. But if you can, 100% wet food, high meat protein content. Choosing dishes for your cat or kitten is also important. Look for ceramic or stainless steel or glass when choosing the bowls. Stay away from plastics. There's a number of reasons for this. One reason is water that is held in a plastic dish for an extended period of time, depending on where that plastic was made, chemicals can leach into the water. And when your cat drinks, they ingest those chemicals. It can begin to blanch or bleach the lips and the nose. So especially if your cat has black lips or nose, you'll definitely want to stay away from any kind of plastic. That's a small thing because although it's more cosmetic than it is physical, it's still something to consider. Physically though, plastic becomes scratched over time, running it through the dishwasher, banging the spoon up against the side, the cat digging in the bowl, it just getting knocked around. And those microscopic scratches can hold bacteria, and then the cat ingests that bacteria and can become ill. So real quick, just something to consider, ceramic, stainless steel, or glass are your best choices for bowls. One thing that you'll want to consider when bringing home the new cat or kitten is a collar. It's always great to have a collar with their identification information attached in the event that they should slip outdoors. So, but you can't just put a dog collar on a cat. The reason for this is not only size considerations and the width of the actual collar, because there are very small dogs, but also the physical activity level of your cat and what your cat does. So cats are leapers and climbers, and they get into some pretty strange situations. So a regular collar could easily hang up and injure the cat. So when looking for a cat collar, try to find one that has what's called a breakaway buckle, so that in the event the cat gets into a bad situation and the collar gets tangled on a doorknob or the edge of a dresser or a tree branch, etc., then the collar will actually break away and your cat won't be injured. Cats and kittens are, for the most part, pretty fastidious groomers. If you're bringing home a kitten that's of a very young age, you may have to do some of the cleaning of the kitten yourself. So cleaning in the anal area and around the mouth, etc. But regardless of the age, there are certain maintenance type grooming that you as the pet owner should handle. Remembering, for instance, that claws, as the cats sharpen their claws, those become very razor sharp and can cause injury. Also cleaning of the ears, checking the teeth, nose health, eye health, paw health, and the coat, the overall coat of the cat. It's always a good idea to groom your cat, whether you choose to use a pin brush. These are pins that are covered on the end, so it's very soft, with another kind of brush, a soft brush here on the other side, or combing. A grooming mitt is a great thing. It fits right over your hand and has plastic pointed ends, not sharp but pointed, that as you pet and stroke your cat, this is a twofold win-win situation, because you're grooming the cat, so you're bonding. And also, don't forget, your veterinarian is going to have to handle that cat. So if your cat's not used to being touched all over its body, then your veterinarian is going to have a hard time handling the cat. If you have a long-haired cat, you might want to consider a professional groomer to keep it trimmed up and neat. Cats are so fastidious about their personal hygiene that if the hair gets too long and material gets caught, they can actually begin to overgroom, and they can lick themselves raw and pull out the hair. So brushing yourself, cleaning up the cat yourself, taking care of the coat. You'll want to be able to clean the ears. You got to look down in there. If you ever look into your cat's ear and you see something that looks like coffee grounds, that's ear mites, so you'll need to have that taken care of. So remember, grooming, touching, stroking, petting, handling of the cat is very important. Another part of taking care of your cat or kitten is going to be trimming their nails. I beg you, please do not get your cat declawed or your kitten declawed. It's not just simply cosmetic surgery. If I was to have myself declawed, they would remove my finger from this knuckle, completely remove the tips. And that's how a cat is declawed. If it's done with a laser, or however, it's a surgical procedure that removes the toe, the last knuckle on of the toe. So it's a much better idea to manage your cat's nails than it is to put them through this cruel surgery. So you'll want to make sure that they use their scratching post to sharpen the nails. When you go to cut the nail, you'll squeeze the paw and have the nail come out. You'll look through the toenail looking for the pink quick that's inside. This is the blood supply to the tip of the toe and to the nail itself. The quick stays an equidistance from the tip of the nail at all times. So letting the nail grow will only allow the quick to grow. So it's never a good idea. So you want to tip the toenail, allow the quick to withdraw, and tip the toenail again in about a week to 2 weeks until it comes back to where it's that nice rounded toenail edge that you want, that won't be those little razors that can do so much damage. So there are a number of clippers out there. This particular one is what's called a guillotine style clipper. This blade on the bottom is beveled, so that when you put the toenail through and squeeze, it cuts it, because remember, the toenail's hollow so that that quick can grow inside. If you use human nail clippers, you'll crush the nail and allow it to split, which can allow bacteria to enter the cat's toe, and then you've got problems on top of that. If you cut the quick, the blood supply, the nerve ending, it hurts for one thing, but also it'll bleed. So some nail clippers, look for on the packaging what's included. This one has both a file that comes here and then styptic powder inside. Styptic powder is what men use when they're shaving and they cut themselves. They dab styptic powder on to stop the bleeding. And in this particular case, everything's included right inside of the nail clipper so that you don't lose it. Guillotine style, there's scissor style that have 2 beveled edges. Just again, keep those nails trimmed, keep the ends blunt, and don't use human nail clippers on the toenails because you definitely don't want to cause any extra injury. When you're thinking about the basic things that you need for your cat, one thing that everyone needs is a scratching post. This is sisal, which has a great rough texture and encourages the cat to scratch on this and sharpen their claws on this rather than on your furniture. So sisal is one of the things that I prefer over anything else that's out there for scratching. Carpet, scratching posts that are wrapped in carpet can also work really well. You can use catnip. Rub catnip into the scratching post or into the tall post with the carpet around, and that will encourage your cat to return to that area or go to that area and scratch the scratching post instead of your furniture. Remember that cats prefer cloth furniture, microfiber furniture over leather. So if you are having difficulties in a specific room, where you want to put your scratching post, make sure that the furniture that's in that room is made out of leather, and that'll discourage the cat from scratching on the furniture. Every cat needs a crate. There are going to be times when you have to transport the cat to the vet, to the groomers, taking it up to grandma's house. If you're having someone come into the house to clean the carpets and the cat can be skittish, someone's coming over who's allergic, someone's coming over who's bringing a dog, or just anytime you need to transport your cat. A covered carrier. Some have doors in the front, some have doors in the top, some have both. It really doesn't matter. The key being that the carrier itself is enclosed so your cat feels safe. When you first bring the cat home, you'll want to leave the crate open in the room where the litter box and their bedding and their food and water is, so your cat can move freely in and out. It's always difficult to wait until the moment that you need the crate to try and convince the cat that they should go inside. So leaving it open in their area, allowing them to move in and out, will just save you a lot of heartache in the long run. So some sort of covered crate with a good ventilation system that's easy for you to transport and that you can strap into your vehicle. It's always a good idea.